Good morning. Thank you for joining me for number 31 with Christina. She'll be here any minute. What are you reading? I am reading The Magical Language of Others by E.J. Coe, and it was recommended by Tria Wen, who'll be joining me in a few weeks, I think, for AA. Hi!
I did it.
Yes, you did it. I believed. I've been through this enough with enough first timers. You all can do it. You can. But I know
Happy
there's always
Monday.
anxiety associated. I can tell by having gone through this enough times that there's always anxiety associated with it. I think especially for people who are middle aged or older, that you are not going to be able to do it, that the technology is too intense. But you can do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You can do it. So it's lovely to see your face.
It's wonderful to see you too. Happy Monday.
Yes, happy Monday. I just wanted to go back to bed. So it's good that we're doing this. I was ready to just.
Yeah. Yep.
So, anything you would like to say before you read your poem, your wonderful poem?
Just thank you. This was quite an adventure, for
It is
me.
an adventure.
um, yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I want to do this. And then, I printed it out and I set it on my table and I circled it. Like it never left my table, just the idea of it. And I circled it for like months, before I could even like sit down to do it. And, I was glad when I did. And there were many versions of this.
Mm-hmm. And how did you settle on this one of all those versions? Well, we can talk about it more after you read it or now.
Yeah.
But I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's an interesting part of the process. Like, how do we decide which version?
Yeah. Well, the first versions, just to be honest, were very Sylvia Plath, maybe even darker than Sylvia Plath and Ed Sexton, Diane Bukowski. I was like,
Those are
oh
my faves.
God.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, you don't have to go there. Let's not go there.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
I as I moved, I got to the root of some things,
Mm-hmm.
that were much lighter and actually very telling and informative after I read it and thought, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a friend, I've mentioned this one other time, who was on here and she sent me her poem and was like, is this too maudlin? It's like, no, I'm the wrong person to ask that. I would always say, no, it's never too maudlin. If it's true and it feels
Right.
real, then it's what
Right.
I mean. And Sylvia Plath and Anne Sexton are giants. So
Yeah. Yeah.
feel
Well,
free to be as maudlin as them,
Well, I was,
please.
I was saying dark, not
Yeah.
necessarily as
No, I
talented.
know. I know. I know. I know. Don't worry. I'm not going to frame this as Christina was on talking about how she's as good as Sylvia Plath. Well, if you did have that kind of confidence, I would applaud you because,
Wouldn't that
we
be
could all use
wonderful?
a little more confidence, to be honest. So,
That'd be wonderful. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well,
So
I should probably read this
go for
before I
it.
like freak out and run off.
Yeah.
All right. So, where I'm from, uh, I am from the 70s, from Hot Folgers coffee and Lipton's sweet iced tea. I'm from the House of Garcia with its family photos and the smell of leather saddles and fresh tortillas. Resilient, tender, the laughter of men sharing their stories while sitting at the kitchen table. I'm from bluebonnets and mesquite trees as far as the eyes can see. Fluffy blue petals at the height of my ankles, daring me to pick them, and trees with roots growing deep into the dry earth, full of locust shells waiting for my little hands to collect them. I'm from generations of cattle ranching now lost, and big hearts easily broken and rarely mended. From Eloisa and her Leopoldo and Lois the Brave. I'm from love that knows no boundaries, binding no matter the distance, and secrets meant to keep you safe, but often leaving you unsettled and pained. I'm from the beauty of my ancestors and the wild stories I was promised would find me. I'm from many religions, all influencing to form one, my own. I'm from the people of Spain and the many other European countries who traveled across the ocean through tears and through bloodshed to root themselves in what we call Texas, creating these contradictions within this Tejana's heart. Tamales and pan de polvo at Christmas, cornbread dressing with too much sage at Thanksgiving, making the cousins laugh. From the strength of women who did not allow the word can't in their vocabulary, no matter the language, and stood strong in the face of circumstances attempting to break them. The eyes of my brothers buried deep into books and boxes, searching for knowledge. On my shelves, in my closet, in my drawers, and often the chairs sitting next to me, sometimes organized boxes, but always accessible in case the faces I carry fade and I fear getting lost. I am from the uncles who cradled me until I slept after my father died, leaving me trinkets I often carry in my pockets, giving me hope and courage. The aunts who kept me fed when my mother was too lost in her own mind or too busy with her paintings to remember me. And my own absolute will to survive and move through strangers who have attempted to teach me to fear. Oh!
Yay! Oh, that was really beautiful, Christina. I did not cry, but I teared up. I attempt not to cry. I really, obviously for me, this has a really strong sense of place and resonates since my husband is from almost the same place. And it's funny because it's not my place, but the bluebonnets and the mesquite and the cornbread dressing and all of those things are so like emblematic of that place, and it's funny that doesn't matter what your family is, it is that place. And there was just so much about secrets and about, I can't remember the line, but mending hearts or the heart. It really got me, and it was in the moment, and how your family rallied around you and came to your aid when things were falling apart. That was really, I could feel that so strongly, and how meaningful that is. And that's the best of family, right?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I feel so fortunate. I think, when we were talking about like, how did I get there to this particular poem? I think this was a very specific part of my life. Here, I'm going to do this. I can see you better now. Like, whoa! It was a very specific part of my life that, from my childhood up until about the time of being 8, I lived in South Texas with around my dad's family. And these were very formative years. And I think that, I was taught by these really strong-willed, very loving, huggy, people. They taught me how to love, and they taught me also how to fight and fight for myself. And I think that throughout my life, no matter what obstacles, I ran into, there was this kind of underneath thing where there was always hope. I was never like, oh, I'm so, there was always this feeling of I've always been loved, and even though I feel alone and I'm going through this thing, like there's hope, there's an end to it. And I think I saw that with this family, this family. And then also my mother's family, the women were strong. My grandmother Lois, super, super strong. And she did things that maybe weren't agreeable to others in her time period, and I think, most of the women in my family, weren't always agreeable, they didn't fit. And
thank God for women like that, I say.
Yeah, and just generous people, generous with their heart. So I thought, okay, as I went through, I was like, oh, that's the root. That's it. So yeah.
I think that can be the power of this poem. It was that way for me too, because I think especially as we get older, 8 is a long time ago. And
Yeah.
I think I can sort of act as if, oh, well, that was then and this is now and I'm over it and I've let it go. But, we built ourselves on that foundation, and what
Yeah.
that is affects us,
Yeah.
for the better, for the worse. So,
Yeah.
I found that really powerful, and that it gave me a specific way in with all the details,
Mhm.
because otherwise I just kind of get overwhelmed.
Yeah. Yeah.
What to focus on. It's just like, I don't know. So, uh,
Yeah, I loved, this prompt, because it did say, okay, go here, kind of go, and I liked, being able to describe the blue bonnets and then, it was interesting because in describing that, I remembered how badly I wanted to pick those flowers, like I love them. I want to pick them, and being told like, that's a
yeah,
state flower. You don't touch that flower, like you don't stomp
yeah,
that flower, you don't touch that flower, and you
yeah,
might get bit by a rattlesnake if you stick your hands in there. So don't do it, and then the locust, it
yeah.
was like I
That was really
remember,
evocative. The locust shells,
but I
and
remember I was so excited as a kid to wait to see if the
mhm,
trees had them, and
mhm,
I had forgotten all of that. Yeah, so it was. I loved it once I settled in.
mhm. It really is a portal to this other. It's sort of fascinating to think that all these things still live in us, because we can sort of forget and think, oh, that's old, I don't remember it. But like, you
Mhm.
give it space, and it does sort of, um,
Yeah.
just come in, like, to the room. You open the door, and here it comes. And I
Mhm.
do find that the more I sort of unpack, things that maybe weren't as wonderful, and I sort of think about them and reckon with them, I do find space for the other pieces, because the less wonderful things don't weigh as heavily on me. So then I can sort of remember, like, some of the magic, because there was a lot of magic. I mean, and it's nice to remember that. And the people who loved you and poured all that love into you, even if it wasn't perfect, because what is?
Right.
It's nice to,
Right.
it's nice. It feels like, I mean, because they're probably most of them not here anymore.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it felt, I always feel this kind of, it's not just gratitude. It's like it's a different thing when I remember people who are gone. Um,
Yeah.
they're like
You know,
with me for a minute.
yeah, they are. I think, when I think about my grandparents, they really built something. They built these humans that were um you know I talk about, like, I have this cousin Mundo, and I call him the cleaner, because, like, I make a mistake and he's in, like, and I'm here, what do I gotta do, like, where are the bodies,
So
and
really like the
every all,
cleaner from the
yeah,
professional. I
yeah,
wasn't sure. I didn't want to go there if it wasn't that. You were talking about some other kind of cleaning, but yes, that exact kind. Okay.
it's like, um, you know, and I think, my first cousins, I have a lot of them, and because of the way my grandparents, raised my father and his siblings, like, we are all very close. Like, um, they're like siblings. It's I wake up, and one of my oldest one, I have an older cousin, Mauro. They're all much older than me because I am the youngest, and
Mm-hmm.
he's I won't go into how many years older because he might be on here, and I don't want him to get funny. um, but I am close with all of them, and they have always been. My cousin Tiffany. They have always been more like siblings.
That's really
So
sweet.
yeah, there's a closeness, but that comes from our grandparents, and how they raised our parents, and how they raised, and even my mother and her sister, they could just really go at it. They were a few years apart, and stuff, but at the end of the day, it was this unit, and both my mother's family and my father's family had that, and I think it really does give me peace, in some really times of trouble, when to know that, like, they exist, and they're there, and you know anyway, yeah,
It's
I can't.
powerful to know people exist who love you.
Yeah,
It's a very simple thing. It seems really simple, and I try, because obviously I have my children that I try to show them I love them, but
Yeah.
I try to show other children in my children's lives, because
Right.
I think of my mom who had a very challenging childhood, and she remembers every person who was ever kind to her. And I feel
Yeah.
like it's important, if possible, be kind,
Yes. Yes.
so it goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm that mother at the school that's always like, hi, everyone. Have a great day. You can
Yeah.
do this, and
Yes,
they're
I
like,
can be a
oh,
little
God.
like that as well. But, well, I'm probably not as enthusiastic as you. I'm probably maybe a little more low key, but I'm there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm just kind of there, and I try to be as non-judgmental and supportive as possible, because everyone's going through stuff. And like, I am amazed. This is completely off topic because we're not talking about teenagers, but we both have, well, I have a
We're
teenager,
about to
you're
get there.
close. Um, People have a lot of issues with teenagers. And I'm like, they're people. Do you remember being a teenager? It's really challenging.
Yeah.
Could we all give them a little grace? Like,
Yeah.
how nice would it have been if the grown-ups you interacted with when you were a teenager just gave you a little grace? It goes a
Yeah.
long way. They're really trying their hardest, most of them.
Yeah.
And I'm just amazed how many people have no time or patience. They're just like, oh, teenagers, It's like,
Yeah.
man, I know it was a while ago that we were teenagers, but nevertheless, I do remember people being annoyed every time I walked into a room.
Yeah.
And I want to try not to be that way.
I remember the angst. Like I was
Yeah.
not
Oh,
always agreeable.
no,
I,
I was not.
I told my daughter because there was a moment where she was like, "Oh, yeah," and I thought, okay.
Sure.
And I said, okay, so let's have this conversation now because I love you. And I said things might get rocky. I said, you got a lot of stuff going on in that body of yours, and there's going to be a lot of more of that stuff. I said, but here's the news. I, too, have a lot of different things going on in my body right now. I was like, menopause, and I was like, so
that's funny.
let's have a discussion about how both of us might have some issues. So we have to be even kinder, and we have to work harder to understand each other and to communicate. I think I got through to her, but she is 11. So
yeah. But they really are going through things. It's funny that you got it, because there's a lot of, and I remember like feeling like I invented eye rolling. I did not. No one did. It's been here. It's stood the test of time. It's a powerful tool. But it was just, and it's funny because I'm still good at it. To my children are entertained by it. I'm like, yeah, you got a skill like that. It never goes away. So
no, it doesn't. It doesn't. My goodness. Yeah.
But anything else before because we do need to wrap up, and I could talk to you forever. So
yep.
But first of all, Christina, you were one of the first people who was like, oh, I really want to do this, and I sent you the prompts, and you really went through a process. You wrote it, you shared it with me. You're like, I don't know if I really want to do this publicly. And, which I totally get, and no pressure for anyone, but I am grateful you did share it publicly. I think it's a bit empowering to just get out there and share your story and your voice. And it's a beautiful story. And I think our words matter. Obviously, that's why I think that, because that's why I'm doing this. But I'm grateful you sort of like went through the stages and you ended up here, and I'm just grateful. That's my
Yeah, I'm always trying to tell other people, help other people empower themselves. And I was like, what's happening to me here? What is this? Who are you? Wait, you're, So no, I am grateful, and you did not push me.
Okay, good. It's glad to hear.
I felt like you let me kind of chew on some stuff, and no, I am grateful that you offered this up, and thank you for letting me be here. So that's what I have to say to you. Thank you.
Okay, well, you're welcome. It was a pleasure, and I hope to see you in real life again soon.
I know we've been planning that only for years, but
okay.
We'll get there.
Okay, so, virtual hugs.
Yes. Have a great Monday.
Okay, you too. Bye.
Bye.